Roughly 40 years ago, we had a probate application for a deceased man who was a post-World War II immigrant to Australia who came from a rural area in Ukraine and was a displaced person. He wrote his will on the inside wall of his toilet in a bit of a hurry because he discovered that he was ill and had to go to hospital. And he got the next door neighbours to come in and witness the will on the wall. The language he used was a rural Ukrainian dialect from before World War II, which had fallen out of use, so it presented to us issues in how to read it and understand it. We managed, by making inquiries in the Ukrainian community, to find a person who could read that dialect and was able to translate it. The method by which you apply for a grant of probate is to lodge the will in the Supreme Court, and they keep it. So that presented a bit of a problem. After negotiations with the probate office, they decided that they'd rather have a photograph than a plaster in their office. Post-war migrants to South Australia who had their family in Europe, they normally leave their assets back to that family. The problem was that the family were typically behind the Iron Curtain, so how do you deliver the assets to them? If I simply send it through orthodox channels, it would finish up as funds for the Soviet Union, not funds for the family. In those days, the Soviet Union had some lawyers in number 5 Gorky Street, Moscow, who would write to me every time I had one of these estates. They knew the person had died, they knew who the lawyer was in Adelaide, and they were looking for the money for the Soviet government. But they would write to me saying, oh, we have been instructed by the family to act for them in respect of this estate, and chase me to send the money, which I obstinately didn't do. At times they got quite angry with me, and a little bit to my surprise, they had copies of the South Australian law, they had copies of the South Australian Supreme Court rules, and they would write to me and say, you should follow the provisions of rule so-and-so in the Supreme Court rules. But of course I didn't, because I knew what would happen to the money. I devised various means of actually physically delivering it to the people it belonged to behind the Iron Curtain, but it was an interesting experience.